My beloved brothers and sisters, imagine waking up tomorrow with the burden in your chest lifted, the confusion cleared, and your heart flooded with tranquility simply because you decided to embrace the secret hidden in reciting Al-Fatiha 40 times. For some of you are carrying anxieties that medicine cannot fix, debts that logic cannot erase, and wounds that words cannot heal. And you have tried everything, yet you haven't tried surrendering to the power of the very surah you recite daily without grasping its depth. And before you roll your eyes thinking, 40 times, that's a lot. Pause. For what if those 40 times become the key to opening the doors you've been knocking on for years? And yes, you might think it sounds too simple, but sometimes the solution you are searching for is hidden in the most consistent acts. So let me tell you the journey of a woman who saw her broken family reunited, a man who found provision when he was drowning in debt, and a youth who overcame the darkness of depression just by holding on to Al-Fatiha with sincerity. And as we move forward, you will discover why this surah, recited 40 times, may transform your dua into acceptance and your silence into answered prayers. But I'll share how to do it properly and when to recite it to witness its power. So stay with me until the end, because you cannot afford to miss the hidden treasure that may become your turning point. Al-Fatiha 40 times brings barakah and opens doors of provision, because this surah is not merely words on your tongue, but a complete conversation between you and your Rabb, a living, breathing shield of mercy that carries the power to attract unseen blessings, ease your paths, and grant you openings in your rizq that no strategy, hustle, or worldly connections could ever guarantee. For the one who turns to Al-Fatiha with sincerity, humility, and yaqeen steps into a realm of divine assistance, where the chains that hold your provisions back are broken in ways you may not immediately see, but will inevitably feel as your days unfold with unexpected ease. For Allah has made this surah a cure, a protection, and a key, and reciting it 40 times with the intention of seeking halal provision. And barakah transforms your seeking into an act of worship that the angels record. For every word you recite is a seed planted in the unseen, and every repetition is water nurturing that seed until it breaks through the soil of your difficulties and blooms into blessings that arrive exactly when you need them most. Al-Fatiha contains praise, surrender, hope, and the plea for guidance. And it teaches you to align your heart with the recognition that all praise belongs to Allah, the most merciful, the owner of the day of judgment, reminding you that your rizq is not dependent on your employer, market conditions, or the opinions of people, but solely upon the one who created you and sustains every living being. For when you recite Al-Fatiha with presence, you are reminded that your sustenance is written, that your efforts are seen, and that your dua is never ignored, even if the form of acceptance is different from what you imagine. And as you recite it repeatedly, your heart begins to trust in the giver of provisions. Your mind is freed from the constant anxiety of how will it happen, and you learn to focus on taking the halal means while relying entirely on the one who controls the doors of provision that people think are closed. When you decide to recite Al-Fatiha 40 times, you are declaring your dependence on Allah with action, not just empty words. For many speak of trust while their hearts tremble in fear of loss. But consistent recitation aligns your inner world with trust, reminding you that the one you are calling upon is the Rabb of the worlds, the most merciful, who responds to the call of the caller when they call upon him, and that his treasures are infinite, never decreasing no matter how much is taken from them. And as you recite Al-Fatiha, seeking barakah in your time, your income, your health, your family, and your efforts, you begin to notice how the barakah enters in small, almost invisible ways, such as a project being completed quicker than usual, a payment arriving on time, a client returning unexpectedly, your health allowing you to work consistently, or your mind remaining clear during moments of decision-making. For barakah is not always a sudden windfall, but a consistent ease and blessing in what you already have, allowing it to stretch further and benefit you in ways beyond material gain. Reciting Al-Fatiha 40 times with the intention of provision is not a magical formula detached from effort, but it is the spiritual fuel that drives your effort with tawakkul and purity of intention. For Allah does not burden a soul with seeking provision without giving them the means to attain it. And Al-Fatiha is among those means, aligning your efforts with divine assistance, clearing obstacles you cannot see, and strengthening your heart to keep striving even when results seem delayed. For each recitation renews your surrender to Allah, reminds you that it is Him alone you worship and Him alone you ask for help, and realigns your actions with the understanding that you are not alone in your struggle for rizq, for your Rabb walks with you, guides you, and aids you when you turn to Him with sincerity, persistence, and gratitude. Within Al-Fatiha is the verse, "Guide us to the straight path," which, when recited repeatedly, is a plea for guidance in every aspect of your life, including how you seek your provision, reminding you to avoid doubtful means, to uphold honesty in your dealings, and to seek halal earnings with integrity, for guidance on the straight path in your rizq will protect you from the traps of greed, haste, and unethical shortcuts that bring temporary gain but long-term loss. And as you repeat this verse, your heart becomes accustomed to seeking clarity before making financial decisions, ensuring that your provision is not only sufficient but blessed, bringing contentment, peace, and reward in the hereafter. For barakah in provision is worth more than abundant provision without barakah. And Al-Fatiha recited 40 times becomes a shield against the whispers of shaitan that encourage impatience and shortcuts. When you make it a habit to recite Al-Fatiha 40 times while seeking Allah's blessings in your provision, you train your mind to focus on Him before focusing on the means, allowing you to detach from the fear that causes people to act out of desperation, for your heart, through repeated remembrance, finds tranquility in the promise of Allah that He will provide for every creature. And you realize that your role is to take the means while keeping your trust rooted in the provider, not in the means themselves. And this mindset shift opens your heart to gratitude for the small blessings, prevents you from envying the provisions of others, and protects you from the dissatisfaction that leads people into debts, discontent, and exhaustion. For a heart content with Allah's decree attracts barakah, and a tongue moist with His remembrance invites His mercy into your daily efforts. Reciting Al-Fatiha 40 times with sincerity requires presence, humility, and intention. For it is not a rushed act of repetition, but a moment of standing before your Rabb repeatedly, seeking His mercy, praising Him, and surrendering your concerns to Him. For each recitation is an opportunity to connect your heart with the reality that Allah's knowledge of your needs is perfect, His timing is perfect, and His wisdom is perfect, and that your role is to remain consistent in your worship, your gratitude, and your reliance upon Him. For when you do so, you find that your provision comes in ways you could never have planned, and doors open in ways you would never have imagined, reminding you that seeking provision through spiritual means does not replace effort, but empowers your effort with divine assistance. Al-Fatiha, when recited with mindfulness and longing, serves as a purification for your heart and your intentions, removing the jealousy, greed, and impatience that often cloud your pursuit of provision, replacing them with contentment, gratitude, and steadfastness. For provision is not only about material wealth, but about having peace in your heart, stability in your home, and the ability to use what you have in ways that benefit you and others. And when you recite Al-Fatiha 40 times, seeking Allah's blessings, you are inviting Him to enter your affairs, to rectify your matters, and to ease your burdens, reminding yourself that the one who provided for you yesterday will provide for you tomorrow, and that your responsibility is to seek Him consistently while maintaining hope, trust, and gratitude, regardless of how delayed your results may appear in your limited vision. Reciting Al-Fatiha 40 times also builds a habit of remembrance and consistency in your life, for it requires you to pause, to focus, and to connect with Allah intentionally, teaching you discipline, patience, and the ability to center your mind on what truly matters amidst the busyness of your daily routine. For many people complain of having no barakah in their time and wealth while they neglect the remembrance of Allah. Yet it is in remembrance that barakah is found. And Al-Fatiha is among the most powerful forms of remembrance, for it is the essence of the Quran, containing praise, worship, surrender, and supplication within it, making it a comprehensive act of worship that brings light to your day, peace to your heart, and blessings to your efforts. When you embrace the practice of reciting Al-Fatiha 40 times, you are not merely seeking a quick solution, but committing to a spiritual practice that transforms your mindset, strengthens your faith, and attracts divine mercy into your life, reminding you that Allah is closer to you than your jugular vein, aware of your struggles, and capable of changing your condition in an instant when the time is right, and your consistent recitation becomes a means of showing your reliance upon Him, your gratitude for His blessings, and your trust in His decree. For provision is not only about what you receive, but about who you become in the process of seeking it with faith, patience, and sincerity. For the believer who aligns their seeking of dunya with the remembrance of Allah finds ease in their affairs, light in their path, and contentment in their heart, no matter how much or how little they possess in this world. Reciting it with sincerity heals spiritual and emotional wounds, because Al-Fatiha is not merely a chapter you recite out of habit, but a living conversation with your Rabb, a divine prescription for the heart that is heavy, the soul that feels lost, and the mind that is clouded with confusion and pain. For when you pause to recite this surah with sincerity, allowing each verse to pass through your lips with presence, it becomes a balm upon your wounds, reminding you that your struggles are seen, your tears are counted, and your pain is not ignored by the one who created you and understands the silent cries you have buried within. For how often do we rush through this surah, not realizing that within its words is the medicine we are searching for in people, distractions, and temporary escapes, while true healing comes from allowing yourself to be fully present in this sacred conversation, letting each verse settle into your heart and realign your perspective with the reality that Allah's mercy encompasses everything, including your silent suffering. When you recite Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen with sincerity, it is a declaration that despite the pain you carry, there is still gratitude in your heart. For acknowledging His praises while you are in distress breaks the chains of despair and reminds you that your situation does not define the goodness of your Rabb, that even in your hardship, there is mercy and wisdom, and by praising Him, you invite light into your darkness. For gratitude during pain is an act of strength, and this verse teaches you to look beyond your wounds and recognize the blessings that remain, softening your heart to the realization that your trials are not punishments but opportunities to return to Him with humility and hope. For praise anchors your soul during storms and shifts your focus from your pain to the one who can heal it completely. When you recite Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim with sincerity, you are reminding yourself that Allah's mercy is infinite and accessible, that no matter how far you have fallen or how deeply you have been hurt, His mercy is capable of mending what has been shattered within you. For many wounds are not visible to the world, but are felt deeply within your heart, where the scars of betrayal, loneliness, guilt and fear reside, and these wounds often become heavy to carry alone. Yet with every recitation of these words, you are calling upon the one whose mercy can reach the darkest corners of your heart, whose compassion can bring peace to your restless soul, and whose forgiveness can cleanse you of the mistakes that continue to haunt you. For in acknowledging His mercy, you give yourself permission to let go of the burden of perfection, embracing the process of healing with hope and faith. When you recite Maliki Yawmiddin with humility, you anchor your trust in the ultimate justice of Allah, knowing that the wrongs you experience, the betrayals you endure, and the unfairness you witness in this world are not unnoticed. For He is the owner of the Day of Judgment, and every injustice will be addressed, every tear will be recompensed, and every sacrifice you made for His sake will be rewarded in full. For this verse reminds you that you do not need to carry the burden of revenge. bitterness or constant worry about outcomes, for your Rabb is the just. And placing your trust in His timing brings peace to your restless soul, teaching you that true freedom is found in letting go of what you cannot control and entrusting it to Him. For your connection with Allah is strengthened when you hand over your pain to Him and continue to live with integrity, faith, and hope in His perfect justice and mercy. When you say, Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'een, you affirm your exclusive devotion to Allah and your reliance upon Him alone. For many people claim to trust Allah while their hearts are attached to people, outcomes, or their own plans. Yet true connection with Allah is nurtured when you internalize that your worship, your struggles, your dreams, and your fears are all to be entrusted to Him alone. For you worship Him not only in your salah, but in your patience, in your silence when provoked, in your gratitude during ease, and in your persistence during hardship. And when you seek His help sincerely, acknowledging your weaknesses and limitations, you find your heart growing in humility and strength simultaneously. For dependence upon Allah is not weakness, but the ultimate source of empowerment, reminding you that your Rabb never tires of your requests and never delays without purpose. And your trust in His plan deepens as you witness how He guides you through difficulties, replaces losses with better, and answers your du'as in ways far more beautiful than your imagination. When you recite Idina Sirat al-Mustaqim, you are not only asking for guidance in religious rituals, but in every choice you make, every thought you entertain, and every path you consider. For you acknowledge that your knowledge is limited and your perspective is narrow, while His knowledge is complete and His wisdom perfect. For trusting in His plan requires the humility to accept that your desires may not always align with what is best for you. And this verse becomes a daily training of your heart to let go of rigid expectations, to allow your plans to be secondary to His plans, and to trust that whatever path He guides you to, it will lead to your ultimate benefit. For your connection with Allah strengthens as you seek His guidance repeatedly, learning to interpret closed doors as protection and detours as divine redirection. For your Rabb knows the unseen and shields you from paths that may harm your dunya or akhirah, even if your heart clings to them. When you recite Sirat al-Ladina an'amta alayhim ghayril maghdubi alayhim waladdallin, you are aligning your heart with the desire to walk upon the path of those who have earned Allah's favor, the prophets, the truthful, the martyrs, and the righteous. And this aspiration creates a spiritual ambition within you that elevates your goals from merely worldly achievements to the pursuit of a life pleasing to Allah. For your trust in His plan deepens when you understand that the trials faced by those beloved to Him were not punishments but pathways to elevation, purification, and closeness to Him. And your connection with Him grows when you embrace your difficulties with patience, knowing that your struggles are not signs of distance from Allah, but opportunities for drawing nearer to Him. For this verse teaches you to seek righteous companionship, beneficial knowledge, and environments that strengthen your faith, reminding you that healing, growth, and success are found in following the footsteps of those whom Allah has blessed. Reciting Al-Fatiha repeatedly with sincerity and reflection also rewires your thought patterns, moving you away from anxiety and worry about the unknown into a state of surrender and proactive trust. For your daily recitation becomes a means of spiritual grounding, reminding you at every salah, in every cycle of your day, that you are in constant need of your Rabb. And this need is not a deficiency, but the reality of your existence. For you are the servant, and He is the master. And acknowledging this truth strengthens your heart, silences your fears, and clears your mind. For your connection with Allah flourishes when you embrace your dependence upon Him and let go of the illusion of absolute control, learning to plan with effort while your heart remains at peace with whatever outcome He decrees. Trusting in Allah's plan requires constant renewal of faith, and Al-Fatiha serves as a daily reminder of who Allah is, what your purpose is, and where your ultimate destination lies. For you recite it in times of ease to express gratitude, in times of hardship to seek comfort, and in times of confusion to seek guidance, allowing your relationship with Allah to deepen through every season of your life. For the consistency of Al-Fatiha in your prayers becomes a rope that connects your heart to your Rabb, a means of of remembering Him when you are busy, a reminder of His mercy when you feel unworthy, and a source of strength when you feel weak. For your connection with Him strengthens when you turn to Him in both your joy and your sorrow, trusting that every moment you spend with Him is an investment in your peace, your growth, and your akhirah. Reciting Al-Fatiha with reflection allows you to internalize the meanings of its verses and apply them to your life practically, transforming your trust in Allah from a theoretical concept into a lived reality. For you begin to view your difficulties as opportunities for dua, your setbacks as opportunities for patience, and your blessings as opportunities for gratitude. For your connection with Allah is strengthened when you interact with His words actively, using them as a lens through which you interpret your circumstances and as a guide through which you navigate your decisions. For the surah becomes a mirror, showing you your reliance upon Him, and a window, opening your perspective to His mercy, justice, and wisdom, allowing you to trust His plan with peace, even when it differs from what you desire. In reciting Al-Fatiha, you declare your servitude, seek His guidance, acknowledge His mercy, and trust His justice, creating a cycle of connection that nourishes your iman and heals your spiritual anxieties. For the repetition of this surah is not a ritual to be rushed, but a sacred conversation to be embraced. For each verse contains secrets of trust, hope, and clarity, and reciting it intentionally aligns your daily life with your spiritual purpose, reminding you that your ultimate goal is not immediate gratification but eternal success. For trusting Allah's plan requires you to believe that what is delayed for a reason. What is withheld for your protection, and what is given out of His mercy. And this trust flourishes when your heart remains connected to Him through the continuous conscious recitation of Al-Fatiha. Your connection with Allah and your trust in His plan are strengthened through Al-Fatiha. When you realize that its recitation is not separate from your challenges, but is a tool for navigating them, that the comfort you seek in conversations with people is surpassed by the comfort you will find in sincere conversations with your Creator, and that the clarity you seek in your mind is found in the guidance you request repeatedly in this surah. For Allah never tires of your requests, and your consistent turning to Him through Al-Fatiha refines your character, purifies your intentions, and polishes your heart, teaching you to live a life of purpose, resilience, and hope, anchored in your connection with your Rabb and your trust in His perfect plan for your journey in this world and the next. Transforms dua into acceptance through consistent recitation, because Al-Fatiha is not merely a passage recited in ritual, but a living, breathing supplication that encompasses praise, surrender, trust, and a direct plea for guidance and mercy, making it the essence of all dua you raise to Allah. And when you recite it with consistency, presence, and intention, it becomes a key that unlocks the doors of acceptance that you may have felt remained closed despite your repeated calls. For many find themselves wondering why their du'as remain unanswered while rushing through their prayers or reciting the Quran without reflection, not realizing that consistent recitation of Al-Fatiha polishes the heart, aligns it with Allah's will, and clears the barriers of heedlessness and sin that often block the acceptance of one's supplications. For the Prophet ﷺ taught that hearts can become rusted, and the remembrance of Allah is the polish, and Al-Fatiha recited with sincerity polishes your heart until your dua flows from a place of humility, clarity, and hope, qualities that make dua more likely to be accepted. When you begin with Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, you are praising Allah before presenting your needs, acknowledging His perfection, mercy, and wisdom, which is a condition of effective dua. For praise softens the heart, opens it to gratitude, and positions you as a servant in need before the King who is able to grant beyond what you can imagine. And your consistent recitation of these words plants seeds of gratitude within you that begin to bloom into trust and optimism, replacing the complaints and impatience that often accompany dua with the humility that Allah loves. For your dua transforms when you stop viewing it as a transaction and begin to see it as a conversation of love, dependence, and surrender. And Al-Fatiha teaches you this approach every time you recite it with presence and reflection. Reciting Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim reminds you of Allah's limitless mercy, softening the doubts that sometimes whisper to your heart that you are unworthy of your dua being accepted due to your past mistakes. For your Rabb's mercy is wider than your sins, and your consistent recitation of this verse cleanses the feelings of despair that can prevent you from raising your hands in dua with hope. For it is hope and certainty in Allah's mercy that transform your dua into accepted supplication, as you begin to understand that Allah does not tire of your asking, and that He loves to respond to the call of His servant who turns to Him persistently. And Al-Fatiha, by reminding you of His mercy with every recitation, builds within you the confidence to keep making dua with certainty that He hears and will respond in the best way. Maliki Yawmiddin connects your dua to the reality that Allah is the owner of the Day of Judgment, that ultimate justice and recompense lie with Him, and that your struggles, losses and unanswered requests are not ignored but recorded and will be compensated in ways far beyond your limited understanding. For this verse, when recited consistently, trains your heart to accept delayed responses to dua with patience, knowing that Allah's timing is perfect, and that sometimes what you perceive as unanswered is in reality a stored treasure for you in the Akhirah, where acceptance will be given in a form far more valuable than what you requested. And as you recite this verse, your heart learns to connect your dua to the hereafter, purifying your intentions and aligning your desires with what truly benefits you in this life and the next. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in reinforces that your dua should be rooted in sincerity and reliance upon Allah alone, free from showing off, expectations from people, or dependency on worldly means alone. And your consistent recitation of this verse realigns your heart's posture in dua, reminding you that while you take the means, it is Allah alone who responds, provides and protects. And this surrender and reliance transform your dua into a form that Allah loves. For a heart that depends solely on Him finds the doors of acceptance opening even in ways it does not expect. For your dua is not only about what you ask, but about who you become while asking. And this verse, recited repeatedly, polishes your soul until your dua is a sincere plea, free of arrogance, anchored in complete trust in His response. Ihdina Sirat al-Mustaqim is itself a dua for guidance on the straight path, repeated in every rak'ah of Salah, teaching you that the most important dua you can make is for guidance, steadfastness and clarity. And consistent recitation of this verse transforms your approach to dua, reminding you to prioritize requests for guidance over worldly requests. For when your path is aligned with His pleasure, the rest of your duas naturally align with your true benefit, and your consistent plea for guidance becomes a means of continuous purification, drawing you closer to Allah, making your heart softer, your intentions purer, and your life choices wiser, all of which become means for the acceptance of your other du'as, as Allah responds to those who seek Him with sincerity and a genuine desire for guidance. Sirat al-Ladina an'amta alayhim ghayril maghdubi alayhim walad dallin connects your dua to the legacy of those whom Allah has favored, reminding you that walking the path of those beloved to Allah opens the doors of His mercy and acceptance. For your consistent recitation of this verse inspires you to study and adopt the qualities of the prophets, the truthful, the martyrs, and the righteous, who were closest to Allah and whose du'as were consistently accepted. And you begin to understand that your du'a is not separate from your actions and lifestyle. That aligning your life with righteousness and sincerity is among the most powerful ways to transform your dua into acceptance. For Allah accepts from the matakin, and this verse reminds you to continuously seek environments, habits, and relationships that strengthen your taqwa, purifying your heart so your dua ascends to Him without the hindrance of arrogance or heedlessness. Reciting Al-Fatiha with consistency transforms your dua by making your heart present, your mind reflective, and your tongue moist with praise, all of which purify your supplications. For dua is more than words. It is a state of the heart, and Al-Fatiha trains your heart, into that state, moving you from impatience to patience, from complaints to gratitude, and from anxiety to trust. And this shift makes your dua beloved to Allah, for He loves the humble servant who praises Him, trusts Him, and persists in asking from Him, knowing that He alone can grant or withhold with wisdom and mercy. And your repeated recitation strengthens your certainty in Allah's power, mercy, and justice, removing the barriers of doubt that often block the acceptance of dua.